Good morning, everyone. You are watching the TMI show with me, Ted Rall. Over there on the far right, where he belongs, is Robbie Westford, and for Manila Chan, who's still putting out the fires of a family emergency. And there in the middle, also where he belongs, is Scott Stantis, the cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune, with a little bit of breaking news that we're just going to get into right away. And that news is that a very storied cartoonist colleague of ours, dear friend Kevin Kohberger of the Baltimore Sun, also the cartoonist for The Economist, the famous magazine, has just been abruptly let go after 31 years of service. He's a very famous guy, and we'll get into that controversy in the world of cartooning. Following that, we're going to be talking about Elon Musk. Elon Musk is really pissed about the big, beautiful bill currently going through multiple dozens of rounds of voting on amendments in Washington, in the United States Senate. He's threatening to start his own political party, the American Party. I know Good. Scott and I always have thoughts about third parties.
We do.
Verbal thoughts for the most part, although I don't know about one started by problematic billionaires, but we can get into that.
Oh, maybe come on, Ted. The Afrikaners are. When will their voices be heard, Ted, in this country? When?
So true. And then also we have a guilty plea coming in from University of Idaho mass murderer. I think we can say mass murderer now, not alleged mass murderer, if he's going to confess to it. And a very interesting piece in the New York Times that kind of got my mind to change. I'm really interested to hear what Robbie has to say. This is about the military's transgender policies and how the Trump administration is handling them. And finally, cheese, milk, other dairy products, there's now a plausible link between them and nightmares, which is very problematic as a French national to hear that cheese could be a problem. But
fromage?
Let's get into it. All right.
Vive le fromage.
Vive le fromage, sure. Indeed. Scott, tell us about what happened to Kevin Kohberger, the cartoonist at the Baltimore Sun. You've seen his cartoons. They're heavily crosshatched, and they're signed just simply KAL.
Yes. Cal has been working there for 31 years. The whole chain, Tribune Publishing, God, English is a second language here. Tribune Publishing was sold to Alden Capital, a hedge fund, which has it's pretty dicey. If you ever look them up, there is nothing to look up. There's not a webpage. They have it's like a storefront in like a strip mall. It's a very strange operation, which seems appropriate to be the last ones to own any interest in any newspapers. He was abruptly, according to his post on Facebook and on his Substack, he was abruptly laid off today. And not surprisingly, quite frankly, we can talk about this. I was so funny. I was telling Ted off camera, Robbie, that I told my wife I was going to talk about this. And her first thought was, now be nice.
Be nice. Don't be nice.
I'm going to be honest. We've done honesty this to ourselves.
Honesty is so rare, Billy Joel said.
It is. And honesties are always nice. So
it is not, but it's necessary in this case. We did this to ourselves. Ted and I have had this discussion on in other venues and talked about this infinitum off any microphones, save for our telephones. We've done this to ourselves. You have to wonder. Cal's work is heavily crosshatched. It's beautiful to look at. He's one of these guys he's a cartoonist's cartoonist. I like to say he's one of these guys who. Cartoonists love his work, especially the crosshatchers and the guys not Ted Rall, who I
don't do that.
Who love that kind of work, and so he was high in the esteem of that world. However, that's not the world in which you have to function, in which you make your living. You make your living appealing to readers of web pages, of publications, of everything, and see, does the editorial cartoon drive traffic to the newspaper? Used to matter a lot.
Yep.
How many times, Ted, have I called you furious because I had a cartoon killed or a good cartoon idea killed that was not bad, but by gum, it's in a family newspaper. Firstly, Second of all, I mean, the language that's used, the coarsening of the culture. I don't want to say fuck every cartoon. I never wanted to, but I did want the option because that's in the culture now. That's how we are. So can I give a quick history of the arc of what has happened to editorial cartooning in America?
Please.
It started off, I mean, it was Thomas Nast, of course, is kind of the father of American editorial cartooning, curiously enough, a German immigrant. But he really kind of created the form out of whole cloth. And it's fascinating to look at his work now. It still resonates. Much of his work can still be satirized and used today. It went on. Puck was a satirical weekly newspaper. Kepler was the editor there, a phenomenal draftsman, but not quite as hard hitting as Nast was. So the profession started with being nasty. Hence the phrase nasty. I'm not sure it comes from that, but that certainly was, they used it against Thomas Nast. He was nasty. You had to take a stand. You had to believe in something. You had to be and say it forcefully. As the profession progressed, you had people like Herblock, who had, Vice President Nixon coming out of the sewer and people saying, here he comes now. You had Paul Conrad, who was vicious. But then came guys like Mike Peters, and who did golly, he had a weekly stint. Mike's early work is phenomenal. Mike Peters' work is hard hitting, using humor as a scalpel, as a sword. It was incredible. But then he got
this is the early 1970s, like under Richard Nixon.
70s, late 70s, early 80s. Right, early 80s, and in that period, Mike got a regular gig on the Today Show on NBC, which was huge back.
By the way, he was the hometown cartoonist for the Dayton Daily News, still is,
and was very nice to you.
He was my mentor. Yeah,
yeah. So and Mike is a terrific guy. None of this is I mean, if I dislike the person, I will say it. But Mike is a phenomenal human being, incredibly supportive of every cartoonist who ever came across his person. I mean, he's an amazing guy. But what I blame him for is he did the golly gee, I'm just on TV and look, I'm silly. And it played, and he got to be on the Today Show, and he actually got a show on PBS, which was 2 drawing boards, and he talked to cartoonists. And then came Jeff McNally. Jeff was not that kind. Jeff was subversively funny.
Your predecessor at the Chicago Tribune.
He was 3-time Pulitzer Prize winner. And he, in his work, was, I would say, subversive in the very best sense of that word. It seemed silly. It seemed almost light. But then you start to dissect it, and holy shit, it was harsh. Unfortunately, no one saw the subtlety and intellect that went behind creating this work. So, then you had guys like Mike Lukovich who copied in, the golly, and a whole handful of other cartoonists did that shtick, right? Well, editors who never liked us to begin with, because they can't do it. They don't have the talent, the intelligence, or the wherewithal to produce what we produce. So they can't. So they resented us. And always tried to marginalize us, started to marginalize us. Well, this isn't funny. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Ted, your work, which was probably the last of the caustic cartoonists, if I may, and I mean that in the very best sense of the word. How many times did you hear when you sent this to different clients, that's not funny?
I did hear that a lot. I think I still hear that a lot. And look, I don't think editorial cartoons need to be funny. There's certainly nothing wrong with it. Great, but there's, it's hard to make really funny jokes about, say, the genocide in Gaza. And
yeah.
I think that might more often than not, for example, be a topic that calls for a caustic cartoon.
Yes.
And so, and there's many topics like that. So, I think the job of an editorial cartoon is to make you think about things in a different way. That's the main job. And to express a strong opinion.
And to engage you as a reader.
In an interesting opinion, not an opinion that's boring. Like, for example, after 9/11, firefighter rescuing a baby. That doesn't express an opinion. It's great when firefighters rescue babies from rubble. Couldn't agree more. Totally agree.
Actually, I'm surprised you're not on Team Rubble on this one, Ted.
I actually would love to. I do want to see someone come out against it. like fuck that baby. That baby had it coming. You know, fuck that firefighter. Why is that firefighter butting into Darwinism? Why?
Well, in all fairness, Ted, we do have that now because we have American politicians saying that there are no innocent babies in Gaza. So, I mean, I think that's probably part of the problem, right? Is that
insanity,
the reality is worse than the most caustic cartoon that y'all can make.
Well, and I would also,
that's a problem.
Just to finish the thought, in his announcement, Cal announced himself as award-winning cartoonist Cal Gallagher. I asked him once.
We just call him Cal. Yeah.
And Cal, just goes to show you what those awards mean and how they protect your job. You know, they don't, and you know that's why.
Well, it used to help.
It helped a lot 25 years ago.
Right.
But, you know, we have a number of cartoonists who still go after like the Western Ohio Volunteer Fire Department Cartoon Prevention Cartoon of the Year Award. You know, it's like, it's absurd. So that's where we are. And that's where cartoonists are complicit in their own destruction. They,
how so?
You know, well, but like I said, they watered down their own work. They allowed editors to do what editors do, which is water it down even more.
Self-censor.
They self-censored because they got syndicated, because you got work published back in the day. Being in the roundup of Newsweek was one of the biggest things you were heading after. You couldn't have dreamed for anything better. But the problem was the guy who was the editor of that section said at an editorial cartoonist convention in public, we will never run a cartoon of any substance. They viewed that section purely as entertainment, and we were providing entertainment. Well, when you give up the mantle of serious consideration, serious thought, when you walk away from that and say, I'm not going to forcefully say my opinion because by gum, I'm going to get a Newsweek and the roundup in the New York Times or the Washington Post or USA Today. A side issue here, Ted Rall used to get picked up by New York Times all the time. It used to piss me off. And he and I had an argument and I won. It's one of the few times I can say there's a clear winner in this. You're going to love this, Robbie.
Hey, I clearly won a bunch of arguments with you.
I said that. That's why I said I clearly won one. And that was Ted was bitching about me being in USA Today. They used me almost. I was on regular.
That's true.
In their staple, but also in the Friday roundup, they used my work a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Ted was like, I can't believe they use you all the time. They've never used me. I go, Ted, you're in the New York Times. I'm in the USA Today. So Ted, you're in the newspaper of record. You're in the newspaper that's read by prime ministers and kings. I'm read by people who get the newspaper free at the breakfast bar at the Ramada.
and
I in Montana,
and I would trade with you because
he's still trying to win the argument, Robbie. I can't believe it. 30 years.
Populist. You know, my biggest regret as a cartoonist is I never got hired by the New York Daily News, the gross, Ford to City drop dead tabloid read by subway commuters. That's where I belonged. And that's where I should have been. I also never got into the Newark Star Ledger, except on a freelance basis. I wanted to be in the grit and the grime of the working class. That's where I belong. That's where I'm from. I'm from Dayton. I'm from the Rust Belt. And I can't believe I ended up in the fucking New York Times as the most reprinted cartoonist they've ever had. It's like makes no sense at all.
Hey, Robbie,
well, you should get into the Daily Interlake here in Flathead County, Montana.
That would be a neat trick to pull for a lefty like me.
Well, and there was a storied newspaper in Chicago called the Interocean. Get it? Because we're buying Lake Michigan. Get it? Got it. Robbie, how old are you? May I ask if it's a rude question?
I'm 48.
Okay, you're 48. You look younger than that.
Don't get on Robbie.
Sorry.
He's married, for God's sake.
Sorry, I like black women. Sorry.
Scott can become black.
I can. I'm pretty dark.
Yeah, transracial.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah, like Rachel Dolezal.
Yeah, sure.
But Robbie, do you read a daily newspaper? Let me ask you this.
I do not. No.
Okay. Well, the second question.
Like online, for example.
Yeah, I mean anywhere.
No, I don't. I'll be completely honest with y'all. Whenever I'm looking for news, what I do is I go through and I cruise on X and see what's kind of going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then what I do, I look at a lot of foreign media because I just simply do not trust American media. I like to go to the South China.
That's for good reason.
Yeah, I was not going to disagree with you.
I mean, I just don't trust it. And I mean, the thing is, like, for example, how y'all talk about the cartoons. I remember, like the cartoons, the cartoons used to come out when the Embargo Act first came out under Jefferson, or the ones that came out against Andrew Jackson, calling him a polygamist, which technically was true. I mean, those cartoons were brutal. There was no, there was
no mercy.
There was nothing spared. And so I just wonder how the political cartooning come from what it is now to now just being a run up of peanuts.
It's a run up of peanuts. It's
I don't
also
understand it.
Had touched on this. There's a number of cartoonists who just draw, I'm going to call them New York Times liberals. They will do whatever the New York Times says. They will follow that line. They will never deviate from that line. They can't possibly say that Donald Trump did anything right ever. In turns, they can never, ever, it's become an art form without substance, like you said. So do you look at anyone's work, Robbie? And honest, I'm not looking for a compliment here, but do you actively look at editorial cartoonists? And if you say no, then that's fine. I mean, you are not alone.
No, the only two, honestly, the only two that I look at are the two of you. Honestly.
Yeah, that's just because you know us.
Yeah.
So if Scott and I roam the country like Johnny Cartoon Seed and like individually meet each American and hang with them, we can rebuild our client list to where they were in the 1990s.
Indeed.
It's crazy.
The late 80s, editorial cartooning was incredibly popular. Jeff McNally made the cover of Newsweek magazine. There were articles all over the place.
Gary Trudeau from Doonesbury was always on the cover of Time and Newsweek. Scott, I think one important thing is I think part of this equation, everything that you said is spot on. In addition, I would add the fact that when newspapers went online, the editorial process changed because the editors changed, and you ended up with younger editors, many of whom had not grown up with editorial cartoons, hadn't seen them, and also who came from the tech side rather than from the journalism side. And so, you end up with like a bunch of like the websites that have replaced legacy print media, like Axios and Salon and Slate and The Hill and places like that. For the most part, never ran editorial cartoons. And what's really mystifying is that when they did really well, but somehow they don't last. So I was the cartoon roundup editor at two sites, Forbes.com and thedailybeast.com. And the cartoons did great. They still canceled them anyway. And they didn't explain the cancellation. They didn't piss anyone off. So they basically just they hired cartoonists. I hired cartoonists. And then basically they were like, they got good numbers, they got good clicks, better than the print stuff, than the words. And they got rid of, and they canceled it. My favorite. Well, Forbes transitioned to a completely different model. So that was a revenue thing. They just didn't want to pay as much. When it came to the Daily Beast, which was the editor was Tina Brown, Tina hired me to do this, and she was like loving the numbers it was getting. So she decided to move it to a day of the week where there really wasn't much traffic. And she thought that people would follow the cartoons to the day that didn't have much traffic, which back then was Saturday. Now Saturday is actually a good day on the internet. But back then it was Saturday. And nobody followed, because that's not how people consume the internet. Nobody's like, oh, it's Saturday. I missed the cartoons that used to be on Thursday. I will now I will follow them to Saturday. This is how Star Trek got canceled in season 3. They moved it to famously Friday night. And, everyone's out Friday night back then. They weren't at home watching TV like they are now. So, it's like, well, look, their ratings are lower. Yeah, because you moved it to a day of the week when people don't watch television. So,
also the technology has changed, because one of the things, I'm going to break some news. The two of you don't even know this yet. One of the things I'm looking at, once I get finished moving, that's why I'm out in the middle of the hinterlands here in Montana. Is at home, I have no internet. So y'all are stuck with me out here in the middle of nowhere.
It's great, though.
It's pretty.
Oh, it's beautiful. No, one of the things I'm looking at doing, because here's the thing. You don't need newspapers anymore. So real political discourse, where it's happening right now, at least on American social media, is happening on Instagram. If you go on Instagram, how you're talking about how the newspapers, they self-censor. If you go on Instagram, the most popular song right now on Instagram is called Boom Boom Tel Aviv. And it's an AI generated song of missiles just bitch slapping Tel Aviv. And it's edgy. People are going there for the meme factor. Political cartoonists are the original meme artists.
Correct.
That's what you are.
Yep, that's
and
right.
so one of the things I'm looking at doing is I'm going to subscribe to some kind of an AI animation service, and I'm going to start trying to animate y'all's cartoons.
Yeah, I've looked into that, and the technology is moving fast, and I don't know if we're there yet. Maybe we are. When I looked about 2 months ago, I was not terribly impressed. I mean, I want the ability to load up my cartoons, my characters, and then tell the AI, show Donald Trump doing this and that and saying this and that. And I so far I can't find that.
There is a AI service once again in China. I don't know why all the good stuff's in China.
China,
right now, like high-speed rails, bridges don't fall down, healthcare. I don't know why all the good things are in China, but I found an AI service in China that will let me generate 8-second clips. So if I got, like, say, 8 slides, if I can animate 8 of those, put them together, put them into a vertical format, I could actually automate an entire cartoon clip, blast it out there with music and subtitles, and I want to see what that does.
Oh, I think it'll be huge. I think
I'm all about it.
Well, the problem is, Scott, your damn coyote always comes out looking like a fucking cat.
Yeah, well. That's what my sons always say.
And that's also that's one of the recurring jokes in the strip.
So I can't remember his name, but I think he's going to be a trans coyote. He's going to be a trans cat.
Winslow may be transitioning to cat.
Well, actually, so listen, let's leave that there. And Scott, if you're able to stay, are you able to stay on? Because I have a couple stories that I think you're going to find of interest.
Oh boy,
you mentioned transitioning. So there's a piece in the New York Times today that changed my mind about something. That's not something that happens very often. So there's a guy he's Major Anthony Guerrero. And to cut to the chase here, he asked his superior officers whether he was able to talk to the public about the following topic. They said no. He decided to disobey a direct order and to resign from the military over this issue. And this appears in the New York Times. I think people will be talking about it. Long story short, he presents himself as a right-wing Christian evangelical and a Republican who opposed the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell in 2011. He's a conservative dude, but he's quitting over the Trump administration's order against transgender troops. Now, he said that the reason that he's against this order is because the justification that's been given by the Trump administration is objectively false. That basically it's there's no proof whatsoever that it harms the military or its readiness, and he's not into trans anything, but that he thinks this is a false reason. And here's the part that really got to me. He says that this is a quote: "The meek compliance of military leadership with the ban sends a chilling message to all service members, namely that our ranks are only open to those who fit a specific ideological mold. Equally concerning is the message that military compliance sends to policymakers. If officers accept this kind of unethical order, where does it end? I fear that the White House will ask members of the military to perform increasingly loathsome tasks." He didn't mention, for example, policing protests in LA, but that goes sort of without saying. He later talks about the military's role in rounding up Japanese Americans and sending them to concentration camps during World War II. The point is that, and I thought, I know we have civilian control of the military in the U.S., and it's one of the defining characteristics of our constitutional structure. But at the same time, I thought, there's this very weird dynamic where you're not supposed to obey an unlawful order, but at the same time, you're supposed to follow every order. The members of the military are between that rock and that hard place. But what really I thought made this piece really worth discussing is the idea that, like, this guy sees a slippery slope here. Even though he's not personally sympathetic to trans people or their concerns that much, he's concerned about the idea that this is about the Trump White House using bullshit to push around the military and get them to do things they ought not to do. And I think that's worth discussing.
Well, my question is where was he during the COVID military the order?
Well, that topic doesn't come up in the op-ed. There's only so many. Not everything is in here.
Well, no, I get it. But I mean, if you're going to pick a hill to die on, right? I mean, one, if gender dysphoria, if you're going to take this from a secular point of view, it is a mental illness. Sorry, it is. And so, if you're a dude who wants to who believes that you're a woman or vice versa, I don't really want you in the military because you're what's the word crazy. So I'd rather you not be there. From a religious standpoint, I want the blessing of God in my country and on my military. So we probably should not embrace something that's condemned in the Bible. So that's for me, it's pretty straight and clear. But I mean, if you're going to go and if you're going to try to say it's a slippery slope because the government is going to try to impose on the military a standard, where was that during COVID? Whenever the government effectively said you will take this experimental medication, you will shut up about it, and if you don't, we're going to dishonorably discharge you. That is the bigger issue, in my opinion, as opposed to what your sexuality is. What you do on your time off, I don't care. Who you sleep with, knock yourself out. I do not care.
Well, you're leaving a lot there. So before you go too far, I don't want to, I want to respond. I'm sure Scott wants to respond too. I mean, I think that there's, first of all, I'm going to say I totally radically disagree, Robbie, with the idea that like the Bible should come into any decision relating to the secular decisions of the government, right?
Agreed.
The Army is works for everybody, including atheists, Muslims, everyone else. So I don't think that's pertinent, really. And also as for the COVID thing, I think that was just following the precedent, which I think is wrong, which is the military just basically reserves the right to shoot its soldiers and sailors up with anything that it wants. And you sign away those rights. And they have under Democrats and Republicans alike for decades, right? So that goes back forever, even down to experiments involving LSD and weird shit like in the 60s, and MK Ultra and all that crap. But
hell, even the Germans did it World War II with meth.
Oh,
it was just wild.
Yeah, and amphetamines. But like, the point is that's like, the soldiers as guinea pigs is its own thing. But the American Psychological Association, this is the crux of the matter, published a study in 2018 that found that substantial psychological research demonstrates that gender dysphoria does not itself prevent people from working at a high level, including in military service. In the piece, he says, indeed, since 2016, since trans people got in, they've been deployed to combat zones, provided vital support to combat operations, and filled critical roles in the armed forces. So, I mean, we know that trans people have served honorably and successfully in the military for a number of years. So what Trump's really doing is basically it's a dog whistle to his base. I don't like trans people. I don't like the whole idea of it. So I'm kicking them out of the military, even though there's really no evidence that that they fuck up our readiness.
So Ted, I'm curious. Real quick, I'm sorry, Robbie, but Ted, real quick, how did this change your what you said you changed your mind on an issue? I'm curious how it did that.
Well, it made me think about I did have some sympathy originally for the administration's ruling about transgender people. Like Robbie, I have some issues. I do think, by definition, there's a mental illness involved in gender dysphoria. I mean, any dysphoria is a mental illness by definition, right? When you are something, but you think you are something else, that means something's off. And so I thought, like Robbie, I thought, well, this is that's not you don't want to give big guns to people who are authorized to go and kill brown people all over the world, to people who might be nuts. And then, but the thing is, if there's not a scientific basis for that, if you don't have peer-reviewed studies that show that there's actually an issue here. You can't just sort of say it and throw people out based because Ted Rall thinks or Robbie thinks maybe, this is fucked up and strange. You gotta have a basis for it. You can't.
Okay, I got your basis right here. I got your basis, Ted.
All right,
I got your basis. Is the rate of suicide higher in the trans community? Yes or no?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, there you go. There's your basis.
They're going to argue. Well, so what?
They're fucked in the head, Ted. You don't need them there.
But a lot of them say that they commit the suicide rate. There's a lot of evidence is that it's because of the discrimination in society, of which the Trump administration's ruling to throw them out of the military is an example. I mean, you devote yourself to the military, you train, you get through basic training and all that, and then they throw you out because there's a new president, because there was an election.
Well, you see, the way that you fix this, and the way that honestly, the way that you fix this would be for Congress to do its job. And if they want to allow, if you want to allow someone who does not, by definition, accept themselves as what they are, if you want those people to be in the military, if you don't want this to be a political hot potato, pass a law. Congress could do this thing. It's called doing its job. The problem is resolved.
Well, you have a Republican majority Congress, Robbie,
exactly.
and they're not going to pass a law in favor of transgender rights, even if it's based in sound science. I mean, these are the same people who think that who want to claim, even though they know climate change is real, they want to claim it's not.
To wait 2 years. I mean, seriously, we lobotomize ourselves every 2 to 4 years. It's just like with abortion. If you want to have the right to murder a baby, then you probably should not wait. No, just hang that up on a really flimsy written Supreme Court opinion. You should probably do this thing called pass a law. If you want to have trannies serving in the military, pass a law. It's really not that hard.
Well, we do have too many. Yeah, I mean, look, the administration's a classic example. We have too many executive orders, too much law that's relying on court rulings like Roe v. Wade and so on. Scott, you haven't said much here.
Well, because my sense is I'm kind of a Goldwater Republican on this issue. Remember when he was asked about gays in the military, he says he only cared that you can shoot straight. He doesn't care if you are straight. I mean, and I think that's really fundamentally the purpose and the function of a military is to, shoot people and break things. I mean, that's their job. Does being transgender
trans people can do that?
What they can.
Transgender people can do that, and they do.
And gay people do that. I mean, just about everybody does it, especially in the United States, where you can get guns out of vending machines.
We're great at killing. We're good.
We really are. And so, where am I on this? I would say I don't have a problem with, and I hate that we have these blanket policies because we're lazy. We're Americans, and we like to say we're hardworking people, and we're not. We're lazy. We like to have blanket policies that all sizes fit all. Robbie, you talked about COVID here in Alabama. They shut down the entire state during the COVID outbreak. There were some counties that had an infection rate of, and I'm not exaggerating, 0.004%. You didn't have to shut down anything, but you could have. Let's say it's St. Clair County, or let's just for shits and giggles say St. Clair County, 0.004% infection rate. You don't have to do it. You can have a standard saying, well, if your infection rate hits this, then you have to do that. If your infection rate does this, then you have to shut down. If it's 15%, absolutely. But, we have this in the military. If a transgender person in communications, for instance, is not interfering with anybody, is not a distraction, is not hurtful to the service and the operation of the armed forces, then who gives a shit? From the biblical standpoint, I'm going to say then that's up to, that's God's job. He makes it very clear. It's not our job to do his job. He makes it really clear. That's why he has the parking space in the corner office. So
I agree. But on the flip side of that though, what this is, this is the wedge issue, right? Because there's a lot of overlap between centrists and leftists and then right wingers like me. So the last thing that you want to do if you're a politician in Washington, D.C., is have three people like us with three very different opinions looking around and say, you're not my enemy. Well, the way that you have to make sure that people like the three of us think we're enemies is that you got to have these wedge issues. That's why they're doing this.
Oh
is
yeah.
that they want to bring up the differences. Like me, I'm a fundamentalist Christian. I believe that homosexuality is a sin, and my mind will never change on that because the Bible's very clear, it's a sin. And the Bible is also very clear. If you go you go through the book of Judges and the other things, if you bring in strange foreign gods, then the people turn away from God. Then God opens up a can of judgment on you, wrecks your country. I don't want that to happen to my country. And as a Christian, I believe that's what is currently happening to us now because America is apostate. That's where I stand, from a religious standpoint. So I don't want to bring something into the mainstream, into the military, that the Bible is very clear as a perversion. So that's where I stand on it. That's not a
Robbie,
political argument. That's a religious one.
You could go down a deep well of beyond the rabbit hole if we're going to talk about trying to turn America into a Christian country. And I would argue that you can't be a Christian country if you're not communist, because Christ said it was easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And he said to give up all of your earthly goods to follow him. And that's the Christian way. Christianity is communist. And so,
and you're making my point.
It's not a communist country, sadly and tragically.
I agree. And you're making my point is that we are so divided. Like, we can't even agree on what an American is anymore. So that's why they're coming up with these issues. Like this major rather, he's entitled to his opinion. More power to him. Knock himself out.
And he's sacrificing over it. He's leaving his career in the military and facing prosecution under the military code over it. So I mean, he gets props.
Yeah, I agree. Then maybe he should run for Congress and introduce a bill to allow trainees into the military.
Robbie, you're right about that. The Congress should do something.
But you talked about Roe v. Wade. They should have codified that. You're absolutely right. If they believe that strongly, then absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you got to stand for something, right? I mean, I just went on to the record in front of everyone online that's watching this, letting you know where I stand, whether you're a Christian or not. And I put my name on that piece of paper, kind of like John Hancock. Like, here I am. Mm-hmm. Here's where I stand on this.
Yeah.
These are one of those issues that you're not going to change my mind on because it is fundamental to what I believe. And that's fine. We can agree on other things. The reason why this is even a story is because you got Mondani, who just got elected there in New York, and now they're trying to throw water on the potential of a coalition being built around some Muslim dude who I do not support from in any normal way, who I would have voted for as a giant fuck you to the man. That's what this is.
I actually heard an interview with him this morning. I had not heard much from him. Yeah, the NPR interview. He sounds pretty remarkable. I mean, I disagree with him on 100% of what he was talking about virtually. I mean,
I actually disagreed with him when he said, we have to do something about this big problem of anti-Semitism. I'm like, what big problem of anti-Semitism? Like, I'm still waiting for, some people to say, actually, I was victimized. Like, that hasn't happened yet, but okay. It's like people be smoking cannabis. Not really.
Yeah, but it has. The synagogues across the country are being attacked, being vandalized.
There's nothing new. That's happened for years.
And a lot of times it happens by the petitioners of those synagogues trying to get brownie points, trying to get sympathy points. So there is that. Kind of like that black dude who burned out his own church in Mississippi. It's like, look what happened.
The point is that, Jewish cemeteries have been vandalized for years, long before October 7th. That's for sure. But I don't think there's a new problem. Anti-Semitism is repugnant. I just don't think it's new.
I'm going to go back to Robbie's original point, which is these wedge issues. And that, because if I'm remembering correctly, the percentage of trans people in America, it's like,
it depends on how you define it, right? I mean, some people are like, it's 1% of the population. I'm like, no, it's not 1%. Bullshit.
Yeah, no way.
That's like, okay, so that's like saying I get onto a New York City subway train where there's 100 people on it and one person's trans. No, they're not. And I live in New York City. Like, that's just not true. I hardly ever see trans people.
Well, maybe they're just very good at it. Did you ever think about
that? Be. It could be one of those crying games.
No, it's a wedge issue.
I saw that one coming.
It's a bullshit issue because it's not. The numbers are so minute. Although
it addresses nothing. Honestly,
It addresses
nothing.
it addresses our bigotry. It addresses we have a visceral, emotional. Robbie, you're not one of them. I suspect I haven't heard it. If you are, and Ted and I aren't, but there are guys who have a visceral, emotional. I mean, over the top response. There's a cartoonist. Mike Lester is a cartoonist who will dream. He'll be talking about Robbie. I'm not kidding. He'll be talking about EPA, restrictions on emissions of coal burning plants in Pennsylvania and bring the issue to trans.
That's
it's
true.
Like, what?
That's dumb.
What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, they're living rent free in that dude's head.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, it's crazy.
I always assumed that like someone touched him in the dirty place who was not right.
I think
he picked someone up at a bar, went home.
Wah, wah, wah. He was working as a waitress in a cocktail bar. All right. with that, we got to keep moving here.
Serious. That's kind of like if you go to Thailand, you think they got this beautiful girl, and you go into a room. Next thing you know, she has a schlong that's bigger than yours. That would be traumatizing to anybody. I'm telling you, no. The reason why I am so militant, and I use that word deliberately, militant on this whole trans issue, as the father of a daughter. If some dude goes into my daughter's bathroom, I'm going to beat his ass unapologetically. I will go to jail for it. I do not care because that's my little girl. And
well, I mean, there's a lot of nonsense, and it's Robbie, again, what you said is worth repeating every time. This is a wedge issue, right?
100%.
Like trans people, trans women in women's sports. Look, if I had a daughter in sports, I'd be upset about it. It's bullshit. It's ridiculous.
There's no such thing as a trans. There's no such thing as a trans woman, Ted. You are a dude cosplaying as a woman. There's no such thing as a trans woman. Sorry,
I'm going to say
you're a man or a woman.
I think there are, but I think it's a tiny fraction of the people who are transitioning these days.
Yeah, I fundamentally reject it. I'm under no obligation whatsoever to participate in your delusion.
But be that as it may. All right, we could talk about trans people all day, but we're not going to do that. So Elon Musk wants to start a new political party. Elon Musk wants to start a so-called American party. People who saw the logo for today's show, the thumbnail, noted that I used a bunch. There already has been an American party a few times in American history. And anyway, so Elon is really, really mad. This is very strange, right? Elon and Donald Trump had a falling out post-Doge. They were calling each other all sorts of names, threatening each other. Now it looks like the truce is over. Elon had called Trump to apologize. Things had gotten a little too hot under the collar. Now Elon's all agitated over the Big Beautiful Bill Act, which is currently working its way through Congress, voting currently happening in the Senate. He's really pissed off about all the deficit spending that's going to come out of this, which is going to be quite massive. And he said on X, if this insane spending bill passes, the America Party will be formed the next day. Our country needs an alternative to the Democrat-Republican uniparty so that the people actually have a voice. Now,
he sounds like DMZ America podcast.
True. He sounds like Scott and I. The thing is, I've been arguing for a while, at least 10 years, that really, truly, at bare minimum, there's four parties in this country that are not recognized as such. There's progressive Democrats, there's corporate Democrats like the Hillary Clinton types, there's country club Republicans or corporate Republicans, and then there's MAGA populist Republicans.
Tea Party Republicans.
At least there's four parties. There's four parties, and so this sounds like it would be more like the last kind, right? Like is what Elon's talking about. I doubt he's talking about a progressive left-wing party. But guys, is Elon serious? And assuming that he is, can he gin up a political party from the ground up? I mean, billionaire Ross Perot did.
Yeah,
he created the Reform Party and got 19.2% of the vote in 1992 in the presidential race. There were some down ballot candidates as well, but not very many. He never built a full-fledged party. And after 1996, the thing fizzled out and went away. That tends to be what happens because the system is really set up against it. But do we need it? Can Elon do it? Will he do it? What do you think?
Yes.
Oh yeah, he'll do it, and he has the deep pockets to do it. And as you touched on, Ted, it takes money to get on all the ballots. You know, you and I have debated this issue for decades now. Literally, not debated it. We agree with each other.
We do.
There are parties in place. The Libertarian Party. You have the Green Party. Years ago, I think they still exist as the Socialist Workers Party and all those guys. But I have always advocated for multiple party systems. And they say, well, break up the vote. Yeah, so what? That's how democracies work. But could you imagine? I was thinking back in 2016, a guy who actually the Chicago Tribune ended up endorsing, Gary Johnson, the former governor of New Mexico, is running as a libertarian candidate with Weld, former governor of Massachusetts. They were starting to really tick up in terms of the polls, and they were dancing around the 15% threshold it took to get in the debates. You know who fucked him over? Say it with me, kids. It wasn't the Trump campaign. It was our friend and yours, the friend of democracy, Hillary Clinton, and her campaign, who went after. And then Johnson had a mind fart on an interview when they asked him about a lipo. He said, "What's a lipo?" And it was not a good moment. But how many times a day did Hillary and/or Trump have that moment? Anyway, it crashed his campaign. They actively went after. Could you imagine for a moment how different the 2016 campaign would have been if it was Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Gary Johnson, and Jill Stein on that stage, the four people who were polling significant numbers? The outcome would have been profoundly different. I'm thinking we may have even had a chance at a President Johnson, which would have been just fine with Scott. And weed would have been legal everywhere because that was one of Johnson's things. My point being, I hope he does it. I hope it's successful. But the thing is, Ted and Robbie, is that they construct it in a way that's sustainable versus the, what was Perot's party? Not Progressive
Reform Party.
Reform Party, which lasted 3 election cycles. It was Perot twice, and then Buchanan.
Oh, I guess I forgot about Buchanan. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which was a weird choice. So, and it was because they still had ballot access because they got enough numbers, but you also have to have down ballot participation.
That's been a flaw with most third parties, particularly in the modern era, right? The Green Party has never been good at getting down ballot candidates, even in major cities and states. They've always focused on the presidential races because it's sexier and you get more. But when you research, for example, the old Progressive Party under Theodore Roosevelt, throughout the teens, there were Progressive Party candidates for mayors and governors around the country.
Don't forget, you had a socialist. You had the long line of socialist mayors elected in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for instance, and you had them in Madison, Wisconsin as well. You had them around the country. You had, Eugene Debs got 1 million votes. In which election was that?
And the Farmer Labor Party, which is now part of the Democratic Party in Minnesota, was the merger of two parties: the Farmer Party and the Labor Party, that were both state parties they were very active in state and local governance there, and I think that's why they still have a vestigial strength there.
So if Musk can put his money where his mouth is, start the party, but you have to start it with a lot of down party representation as well. That is, dog catcher, the county commissions, the water
School
districts.
Board.
All of it, and start from there. Then you start building, and that's when it gets serious. Top of the ticket, Elon Musk cannot be president of the United States.
No.
Even with all of his money.
One of the commenters, backside of nowhere, said Perot is more likable, and that's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he was more intrinsically American too. Really, that chutzpah.
Well, Musk can't run for president anyway.
He cannot.
He can run. He just can't serve, right?
I don't think he can serve, right? So, yeah, okay, that gets ridiculous. A third party, a fourth party, a fifth party. I would like to see at least 4 to 6 parties in every election. Serious. And
I don't know about the name. You and I are both aficionados. We're all 3 aficionados of history here, right? So, we all know the names of. There was the Populist Party in 1892. I'm surprised that's the only time. There was also David Duke briefly resurrected the Populist Party name, but that's a good name. The Progressive Party, I'm surprised. I keep thinking there should be call it the NPP, the New Progressive Party.
Yeah, the bull moose, the new bull moose
for the left. Yeah, maybe not the bull moose because that's too like dorky.
I love that. Oh, come on, no.
You win Montana with it.
No, that's true. But anyway, I mean, what do you
Maybe
think about
Wyoming.
America
What was
Party?
the-
It seems a little generic to me.
But there was an American Party. Help me, guys. Remember, George Wallace ran on the ticket in '68.
Yeah, in '72 there was an American Party, not
American, but not American. It was American something party. American.
Oh, the American Statesman's Party.
No, that wasn't it.
That's Strom Thurmond.
Well, he ran at. Well, that was actually Thurmond in '48 ran
States' Rights Party.
States' Rights Parties, right? Oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind.
And then, of course, there's the Labor Party. That was 1948. That was Henry Wallace.
No, I'm going to do Elon Musk a solid. The best name for it, honestly, would be the Rent's Too Damn High Party. Honestly, that would do it. Think about it. I mean, the whole reason why I'm out here, sitting out here in the middle of nowhere talking to y'all right now is because I just got priced out of my house.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm sorry about that.
You're moving.
Why did I get priced out of my house? Because the rent's too damn high.
The rent is too damn high. I'm currently
arguing
with my landlord right now.
Why is there now a Muslim immigrant from Africa who is all but the mayor of New York? Because the rent's too damn high.
So,
I mean, seriously.
Jay French on YouTube says Musk has the biggest megaphone on the planet, and there's demand for a protest vote party. Right, and the question is though, but what does that look like? I mean,
American Independent Party.
Wasn't there something already like that? AIP.
Oh, it's still around, and on the fringes. Go on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, and there was the Prohibition Party, without a doubt, one of the most interesting political parties.
Everyone would think that it would be like knuckle dragging conservative. It was crazy progressive. It was crazy liberal, especially by 19th century standards. I mean, they were against drinking. They wanted to outlaw booze, but they were also free love,
gay rights,
bringing the African-American former slaves fully into the Union. It was before the Civil War, they were for abolition, of course.
Oh, and they were women, and they were the center of the women's suffrage movement.
I know. Isn't that crazy? You wouldn't conflate those.
But it makes sense when you think about it, because in the 19th century, guys kicking off the factory work, stopping off at the bar, spending their entire paychecks getting drunk, coming home and beating their wives, right? That's what they did. And so, like, booze was evil. It was really objectively awful, and it was fucking up society. 6 Ways Till Sunday. You get a sense of that. You don't remember how bad it was, because obviously none of us were there unless you read about it. But like here in New York City, there was an ordinance until fairly recently that said you could only have 1 or 2 pool tables in any establishment that served liquor. And when you looked into why that was, they changed it in the 1980s. They went so that, billiards halls could serve beer. But back in the 19-teens and aughts, people were killing each other over pool games every day. It was a bloodbath, and it got to be just out of control. So that's how bad it was. It makes sense.
And honestly, I mean, the name that I would pick would be the America First Party. Because that's what it would be. It would be America first. Republicans are America first. Democrats aren't America first. Like, I'm a right winger. I'm not a conservative. There's nothing in our governmental structure that I want to conserve. I want to blow it all up. I want to nuke it and start completely over. There's nothing here I want to save.
But the thing is, party names resonate through history, right? And so, like, if you pull out, like, the problem with America First is, of course, Donald Trump used it, and before that, what's his name? Who used it before that? Oh, Woodrow Wilson used it, and of course, Charles Lindbergh used it in the
1930 Republicans.
It's associated. People have forgotten the Woodrow Wilson part, but it is associated with right wing causes. So I think lefties would be like, I don't want to join the America First.
I think it was before the age of Trump. Ted, I would agree with you. There's a lot of people on your side of the aisle and on libertarians who are now asking questions. How do all these foreign adventures, how does all this foreign aid, how does all this reckless spending put America first.
Well, I
Before
mean,
that,
look, all
before
you'd have to do,
2016, I would agree with you.
all you'd
Now,
have to
I
do is
don't.
articulate a platform that would be appealing to a broad cross section of people, and you'd educate people, and they would figure it out, and the name would assume a new meaning, right?
Yeah, I just say
Yeah.
fuck them all.
Well, there's the name of the party.
Fuck them all.
Fuck them all.
Scott, if can you stick around, or do you have to go?
I got to get going. I got to
Okay.
draw.
Yeah, I gotta get going too. I gotta go
Unfortunately,
pick up the
we'll
keys to my new storage unit that is going to be my new house.
All right. Well,
Where are you exactly? Can you tell us? Are you this
I am
it is a
I
big
am
sky,
in
and it is big sky country.
Yeah, I am in Woodland Park, just outside of Kalispell. And so, fun little story. So the apartments are. I was living in a house. I can no longer live in a house because houses are not for people like me in America anymore. So we're moving to apartments that were made out of shipping containers. The rent is the same that it was paying for the house.
Jesus.
And so I am now moving into a shipping container that's been made into a studio apartment with 2 bathrooms and 4 bedrooms. So I have a studio and stuff. And so my rent will still be $1,700 a month, but instead of having a house, it will be a storage container. And
Wow.
so that is why Mandani won, is because if you are a working class schmuck like me who does not have a college education, this country, we have no future. We are completely, totally, utterly fucked.
All right, Scott, I'm going to let you go. Robbie, I'm going to hold on to you while we race through the 2 last stories. Scott Stantis is the editorial cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune, contributor to Center Clip, winner of the Sigma Delta Chi Journalism Award, and the co-host of the DMZ America podcast with me, Ted Rall. Scott, we got to talk about when we're doing it next.
Yes.
And so, bye, Scott. See you and talk to you later. Okay, bye. Okay, so quickly, the University of Idaho suspect.
Look at that sky.
It's amazing.
That sky.
He's a criminologist. And he's a grad student in criminology at the University of Idaho. He is accused of breaking into an apartment building shared by a bunch of students and murdering 4 kids: Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Kaylee Goncalves, and Madison Mogan, at their house off campus. He's been awaiting trial for some time. Anyway, he decided to, looks like he's going to plead guilty today. At least one of the families is really angry that he's not going to suffer the death penalty as a result. And also other families are saying they would have liked to have seen a trial because then the truth would have come out. Also, one of the family who wanted to see the death penalty was angry that he might have the ability to write a book about his experience as a murderer. Any thoughts?
He should be hung.
Oh yeah, the other one family is pushing for Idaho to restore the firing squad as a method of capital punishment. That's not the worst way to go, really. I mean, it doesn't seem as painful as lethal injection.
No, I mean, I would prefer guillotine. It's also more ecologically sound. But firing squads work. They have a storied tradition here in the American West. And if you're using 5.30-06 rounds, you're not going to feel much.
I would like to know why Bryan Kohberger did this. So I would like. I mean, one of the things I would require is that he cooperate with psychologists and criminologists to explain himself, because I think this is something. It's very hard to understand why someone would do something like this.
Just evil.
Yeah, I mean.
If you have a mad dog, you put it down. If you have a mad human, you put him down too.
Okay, but we know why dogs go mad. But we need to know why people go mad too. And dogs can't talk.
Well, because we're able to make choices and we're sentient. So there's that.
So it's pretty crazy. And okay, so not a lot to talk about there, but I mean, I'm against the death penalty for the simple reason that the state shouldn't be in the business of killing people. Robbie, you believe in the 10 Commandments, right? Thou shalt not kill. Doesn't that apply to the state of Idaho?
That comes into the jurisdiction of powers, right? Because again, as a Christian, the Bible actually mandates government. And so one of the things that
Sure, but
the
thou shalt not kill is pretty sweeping, right?
well, for murder, like for example, I can't go kill my landlord because she's fucking over me and my entire family. That would be
Right,
murder. That would be wrong.
right.
However, if someone murdered my wife, it is then the responsibility of the government to act as that avenging sword to get justice on my behalf.
I don't think that's what the Bible says, Robbie.
100% is. I can send you the chapter and verse. It is clear as day.
All right, we'll talk about that later. Okay, and then my favorite story of the day. This is really a Manila and I fry yay type story, and we're looking forward to having her back soon. A new study in the journal Frontiers in Psychology says that dairy may cause nightmares, and its nightmare severity is robustly associated with lactose intolerance and other food allergies, according to Tor Nielsen of the Université de Montréal. These new findings imply that changing your eating habits could alleviate nightmares. They could also explain why people so often blame dairy for bad dreams. So to make this really clear, if you have lactose intolerance, you can end up with severe gastrointestinal symptoms that cause nightmares. But even for people who don't, if you just eat more dairy, you may end up having some very, very fucked up dreams. But it should be pointed out that not everyone agrees with this. In 2005, the British Cheese Board, see what they did there? They conducted a study with 200 people and found no link between cheese and nightmares. But
it's always the Brits. It's always the Brits. They're always causing trouble.
What about? Do you have any personal experience with nightmares after you went on a mad cheese bender?
No, I never have. No, I eat a lot of cheese, eat a lot of dairy. I'm here in Montana. It's right. What we do here.
Mm-hmm.
And I eat cheese, sleep like a baby. Sometimes I end up fumigating the bedroom, but I mean, the wife has to deal with that. But as far as nightmares, no, I'm good.
All right. Well, and with that, now you have too much information. Everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Really, please like, follow, and share the show as much as we can. We're only 75 subscribers away from monetization on YouTube. So if you're not already subscribed to us on YouTube, even if you're watching us on Rumble, it would be great if you could pop over there and just hit that subscribe button. It would help us out a lot. We're already monetized on Rumble, so that's great. We're here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. FYI, we're not here this coming Friday for Independence Day, the 4th of July, because it's a federal holiday. We always respect the federal holidays. So we're just, with the last two shows of the week will be Wednesday and Thursday. Manila Chan, if you're just joining us, is out for a family emergency. She may be back tomorrow. She might not be back tomorrow. We'll find out, and we'll keep you posted on that. Thank you so much, and do take care.